Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Chase with Jace. I am your host, Jace LeJeune, of course, and it's another week, another time to talk about those Fighting Tigers of LSU. As on The Chase with Jace, well, we're discussing the Tigers' chase for a championship. And the LSU Tigers, they recently ended spring football. Now they got a little bit of a break, as I would say, as they go into the summer, but there's still a lot going on at LSU on the premier college football programs and across the country. Now I'm here as an LSU beat writer to give you updated on what's been going on with the Tigers every Wednesday. And this is also an opportunity for you, the viewers, to ask questions. If you want anything that you want to know, please comment in the comment section, and we'll make sure to answer any of your questions regarding LSU. So if you have a question for me that you want to get answered here on The Chase with Jace, please comment below and I'll make sure to answer your questions. So comment in the comment section if you have a question, but there's a lot to discuss. Especially this past weekend, because the LSU Tigers, there's been a lot of representation in the NFL draft. I'll go over who are some of the guys that have been drafted at LSU. And then also it was a big week last week in recruiting. LSU picked up a couple 2024 commits as well right here from the boot. So, Brian Kelly, he wants to make sure that the LSU puts a fence around the state of Louisiana, and he's doing a good job of doing that, as there's two high school players that are committed in the 2024 class, and this is a pretty good 2024 class, one of the tops in the nation. So comment in the comment section if you have a question, and I'll make sure to get back with you. And then make sure to go to our website, gridironfootballusa.com, if to keep up with everything going on at Gridiron Football, all our content, all my LSU articles. If you want to know anything about LSU, make sure to go to our website, once again, gridironfootballusa.com. As we're getting viewers getting some more viewers watching the show, I'm going to go over the sponsors, and you'll actually get to see a lot of them scroll through the bottom of the page here as I go through them. But we cannot do this without the helps and efforts of guys like Mr. Willie Johnson Jr. From the Johnson Law Group. So when it comes to catastrophic injuries, 18-wheeler and vehicle accidents, civil litigation, they handle it all. So Mr. Willie Johnson Jr. and the Johnson Law Group, one of the best trial lawyers in the country, will put them among the very top of that list. So if you're in an accident, it's very unfortunate. It happens to all of us, every now and then. What a better guy to get in touch with than Mr. Willie Johnson Jr. Give him a call at 225-717-7070. Has law offices in Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and Zachary. So make sure to give him a reach at 225-717-7070. Excellence and hope in action is their motto. Also, the Mississippi State Guard. So if you are in the state of Mississippi and you want to get involved, you want to make an impact, what better way to get involved than the Mississippi State Guard? So go to www.mississippistateguard.org, or for short, www.msstateguard.org. And then if you want to get hooked up with some gear, go to ultimateapparel.com. So www.ultimateapparel.com. Tell them that Gridiron Football sent you over to Terrence. Terrence does an excellent job with hooking up with a lot of our bowl game, Gridiron Football All-American bowl game jerseys that you'll be seeing, I'm sure, in the upcoming weeks as we invite players to attend our bowl game. So a lot of stuff happening. Can't not appreciate those three sponsors. And hey, if you are an advertiser that wants to get involved, wants to get your name out there, wants to get your brand out there, what better way than get with Gridiron Football? On shows like this, The Chase with Jace, throughout the whole show, you'll see those three sponsors I just mentioned to you on the show. So if you want to get involved with us, we have our website, we have our newsletter, we have our YouTube. Make sure to contact us, and we'll make sure to get your business out there and get what you need and desire. Now let's talk about some LSU football, some Fighting Tigers action. So we will talk about it here at Gridiron Football. And like I said, I will not hesitate if you have any questions, comments in the chat section. any questions that you may have live, I'll make sure to answer them for you. So any questions that you have for LSU, I got you covered there. But as I wait for questions to come in, as for more people to come in, I'm going to just get my 2 cents on what's been going on these last couple of weeks. And we have to start with the NFL draft. And speaking of that, it's been one of our top articles really these last couple of weeks has been the 5 players got selected on the 3rd day of the NFL draft. So 5 of the 6 players got their names called on the last day of the draft. On the 2nd day of the draft, 1 player got his name called from LSU. We'll go over it right now. So I'm going to put some of these images up. And these images were taken by our 2 great photographers, Billy Metcalf and Jason Saucier. Appreciate those 2 guys and the great work that they do for us. So credit to them and the excellent images that you're about to see. So I'm going to get to it with the NFL draft. So there's been 6 players that have been selected in the NFL draft. And LSU, they like the mantra NFLSU. I mean, it's pretty clever how they do it. You know, we have LSU, you put the NFL in front of it. It's pretty cool how they do that. So the NFLSU, I really like that. But as we talk about it here at Gridiron Football, it's pretty much what I expected. About 5 players being selected in the later rounds, and this isn't like a top-heavy name for LSU in terms of like we in years past when we had first-round picks, when you had guys like Leonard Fournette and Patrick Pearson and Tyrann Mathieu. Look at the 2020 draft class, right? Like Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that whole offense, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I can pretty much go on and on with that, but I think it's the first time in years, I have to go back to the exact year, I think it was the 2016 NFL draft, that there was not an LSU player selected in the first round. If you go, there are actually about, in this draft, only 1 player was selected on the 2nd day. And that player was B.J. Ojulari. He was selected with the 41st pick of the 2023 NFL draft. And Ojulari, he had a great career at LSU. He came in out of Georgia, out of Marietta, Georgia, was a great football player for LSU, great pass rusher. I mean, he finished his career with the Tigers as a first-team All-SEC selection, 129 career tackles, 25 TFLs, and 16.5 sacks in his 3 years. So a lot of production there at LSU. His older brother, Azeez Ojulari, he got drafted. He was, I believe, a day 2 draft pick as well with the New York Giants, and he's actually a standout for the New York Giants too. So, so he's really taking care after his brother in that aspect. And BJ, I even asked him this question in the NFL at the LSU Pro Day about what it means, kind of going through his process like his brother, and he's just really honored to really go through this process, and he's just trying to take advantage of it as much as he possibly can, and he's done that. So the Arizona Cardinals get him. And that is a team that has picked a lot of LSU players in years past. I mean, most notably Patrick Pearson. Rashard Lawrence was picked there as well a couple years ago. I think that's a really good fit for Arizona. And when I heard his name being called, by Arizona, I feel like that was a really good selection, being a pass rusher, what he can do off the edge. I think he's going to be a really good get for the Arizona Cardinals. I think he's going to have a really good career there, just like his brother, what Azeez is doing. So the former number 18, wore number 18 at LSU, had a great career. He wore number 18 for a reason. You don't just pass those jerseys around. Those jersey numbers mean something. And then when he got awarded the number 18 jersey, it just shows you what BJ can do as not only a football player, but what he does off the field. He's a great representation, a great high character young man. I truly believe he's going to be a great veteran in the NFL. He is a pro, and I'm just so happy for him that he's able to get that opportunity with Arizona. Now, that was the 2nd day of the draft, and, which was not that surprising for B.J. Ojulari. Everybody was expecting him to be drafted in the 2nd round. But if you go further down, he was the only guy that his name was called on that 2nd day, on Friday. And then on the third day, that's when we got a lot of action for LSU. And you can go back to my article at GridironFootballUSA.com, and I even talked about, I gave a recap, and 5 of the 6 players were drafted by LSU on that third day. The first one being Anthony Bradford, which was, a lot of people were thinking that Anthony Bradford, who was an offensive lineman at LSU, started this past year, was going to get selected in the 3rd round, but he ended up going to the 4th round to the Seattle Seahawks. And being a former LSU offensive lineman, I think what really makes Anthony really so unique is that he's a big body, but he's very versatile. I mean, you look at over his LSU career, he started 17 games. 10 of those games, which was really last year, he really came into his own as a right guard and really helped settle in his role, as you see him there in the picture with the Seattle Seahawks, as the Seahawks drafted Anthony Bradford with the 108th overall pick. But as I was going to my point, started 10 games at right guard, 5 of them at left tackle, and 2 of them at left guard. So he brings a lot of versatility. He can play guard or tackle. He's more of a guard in the NFL. But Seattle, they really like their guards that really come in from LSU. I mean, keep in mind, you go back to that national championship team, Damian Lewis was drafted by Seattle, and he was the offensive guard for LSU. And they had a couple of good ones before that, too. And really, this is a really good landing spot for Seattle, especially they got some bruising running backs that they drafted with their draft picks, too. So I really like Seattle getting a guy like Anthony Bradford that's a mauler that can really get you involved in the running game. So it was a huge part in what LSU was able to do. Ethan Posick was the other guy I was thinking about. He was more of a center, but he got drafted by Seattle as an LSU guy. So shout out to Anthony Bradford. Again, drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, and I think the Seahawks really got themselves a steal. And everybody was talking about how good of a draft they really got when they drafted receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba to really help the offense out at receiver to add with DK Metcalf. But I think they got a really good guy up front, too, in Anthony Bradford. Now let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings, too, because another pick in the 4th round, and you won't see it in the slideshow here with the images across the board, but Jay Ward was drafted with the number 134th overall pick. And you have to see the Durante Jones impact on making that pick. Remember, Durante Jones was a defensive coordinator at LSU 2 years ago. And you can tell that that's what really got involved in making that pick. That connection with Durante Jones as a DB coach too. You have to know that had to be involved with the decision making there. But going back to it, Jay Ward, talk about another guy that brings versatility to the table. And I think that the Vikings got themselves a steal because I really thought Jay Ward's good enough and versatile enough. He's really shown it throughout his whole LSU career, and I thought he had an excellent start to this past season, especially that game he had against Mississippi State. What a game he had in helping LSU get their first SEC win of the year. He was just pretty much all over the place in that game. I think he was the SEC Defensive Player of the Week. He had 11 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, an interception, a pass breakup. He did a little bit of everything in that game. Really helped LSU a lot defensively. And that interception really helped LSU seal the deal in that win against Mississippi State earlier this year. But he's played a lot of football. 46 career games, 23 starts, and he's been very productive. I mean, his overall numbers, 164 tackles, 3.5 TFLs, 6 interceptions. Those are his final numbers. And then he helped LSU last year reach the SEC championship game, 60 tackles, 4 PBUs, 2.5 TFLs, and an interception. Those were his final numbers this past season, helping LSU get the SEC West. But very versatile guy. He started at safety. He started at quarterback. He started at nickel. He's played a little bit everywhere on the defensive backfield for the Minnesota Vikings. And he is going to be a really good pickup for the Vikings. And that relationship with Durante Jones, that's going to help Jay Ward even more. And the Vikings didn't stop there. They got Jay Ward, but they went in the 5th round, and with their back-to-back picks, you know how Durante was really involved with the selection process for getting these LSU guys. You just saw him right there, Jaquan Roy. He got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings too. And a funny story about Jaquan Roy in regards to this. Jaquan actually, he tweeted this out after he got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. When he was growing up playing like Pee Wee football, youth league football, he actually played for the Baton Rouge Vikings. And it's like the same colors as the Minnesota Vikings. And as a kid, you see him wearing the jersey playing for the Vikings. Now he gets to play in the NFL at the highest level. He gets drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. So I love how things just come together for a guy like Jaquan Roy. A Baton Rouge guy, lived right across the street. I won't even say right across the street, like a minute away from campus. LSU, he played his high school games at U High right across from the practice facility at the Charlie Mack practice facility at LSU. Had a great career at U High, highly recruited player. He was actually a Gridiron football All-American invitee to our bowl game a couple years ago. Played 35 games, a highly recruited guy, ended up signing with LSU. And this was the time where U High they were loaded. They had a lot of guys, like Christian Harris, Micaiah Tongue. You have running back Malik Collins. Mike Collins. So really that team was loaded. And he was one of those guys that picked LSU, that ended up going to LSU. Had a really good career. Last year was really his first full year as a starter. But, he finished with 97 career tackles, 13.5 TFLs, 4 sacks. So productive, especially when last year was considered his first full year starting. Had a lot of potential. And I think this is a guy that can really hit his ceiling in the NFL. I think he's going to be one of those guys that you look at the end of it. I think he may be a guy that might be a more productive guy in the NFL than he actually was in college. So Jaquan Roy was a great player at LSU. Really helped the inside of that defensive line this year. I mean, keep in mind, LSU wasn't really that deep this year at defensive line. When Mason Smith went down with the injury at the beginning of the year, it was really up to Mekhi Wingo and Jaquan Roy to really fill that spot for really the endurance for the entire year, and those two guys did that. Jaquan Roy has made some big plays this year. I think one that really comes to mind, he made a tackle on Auburn's quarterback early in the year, and this is when the game was tied in the fourth quarter, and really Robbie Ashford had about 50, 60 yards of real estate. But he just comes out of nowhere and trips Ashford up. And that was a huge play that nobody really talked about last year. But really, it stood out. I mean, he made a huge play early in the season. Jaquan Roy was a great Tiger. And I'm glad that Minnesota Vikings got a couple Tigers to join Justin Jefferson out there in Minnesota. And then in the 6th round, there were 2 guys that got drafted. One being Kayshon Boutte. Kayshon Boutte was one of the biggest storylines. I mean, this was throughout the whole year. Projected as maybe a Blitnikoff winner based off his production in his first 2 seasons at LSU. But with the injury he had, you can tell the ankle injury really bothered him a lot this past season. And his just trying to find that really camaraderie, that chemistry over the course of the season with Jaden Daniels. Really, a lot of it wasn't really his fault. I know Kayshon really got a bad rep for last year. But not a lot of it was really his fault if you look back at it. But Kayshon has a talent. I mean, we saw what he did. You saw what he did against Ole Miss his freshman year. I mean, he set an SEC record. I believe it was 300 yards, over 300 yards receiving. He had 14 catches, 3 touchdowns. He went off in that game against Ole Miss. That was the COVID year. That was his freshman year. His sophomore year, he looked like he was on his way to having an All-American year. I think he had 9 touchdown catches like in the first couple of games, and he gets hurt against Kentucky. And I feel like really that ankle injury he suffered against Kentucky was more serious than we originally thought. And I think that really impacted him a lot this past year. And because of that, he missed a couple of games, of course. There was one game he missed a game because he was able to have a kid, and he was there for the kid's mom just to be with her and celebrate their child. So he missed one game last year because of that. There were a couple of things. He only had 2 touchdown catches last year. But a lot of it, he didn't have a great time at the NFL Combine. I think he was timed like a 4.57 or 4.59. So a lot of that really hurt his draft stock this year. This is a guy that was projected to go in the first round and end up at the beginning of the year and ended up going to the 6th round. But the New England Patriots were able to select him. And you see that picture right there with the Patriots logo of Kayshon Boutte. But the Patriots were able to get him with a 187th overall pick in the 6th round. And I think what really helped was that, if you can recall, at LSU's Pro Day, that actually you go back at it, Bill Belichick was there at the LSU Pro Day. And I think it really helped Kayshon, really seeing Kayshon in person and what he's able to do. He didn't run the 40, didn't participate in a lot of drills at the LSU Pro Day, but what he was able to do was he was able to run a couple of different routes, participate in a couple of drills. So Bill Belichick was able to see that up close and personal, and the Patriots, they need some help at receiver, and Kayshon Boutte, I mean, he can be a guy, he can be a major steal. You know what? Bill Belichick has made a living off getting guys late in rounds and really making them very productive NFL guys. And Kayshon Boutte, he has as high of a ceiling as any of these late round guys that you'll see in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, because this is a guy with first round talent. So very intrigued to see what Kayshon Boutte does in Foxborough. And then lastly, the last guy that got picked, and you're going to see him momentarily, and that is Jarek Bernard-Converse, was a 204th overall pick to the New York Jets. And the LSU player that benefited the most from that LSU Pro Day was, without a doubt, Jarek Bernard-Converse. He had an incredible LSU Pro Day. He tested really well with the numbers, 4.4 40, had a 42 vertical jump. A lot of it was his ability to really be an athlete. I mean, he's long, he's rangy, so he is going to be a big pickup for the New York Jets. So we have a question from Cameron Siniglia. So Cameron wants to ask, what did you see in Converse during the season and Pro Day that will end up making him a steal in the 6th round? And that's a good question, Cameron, and a really good question there. I appreciate reaching out. And like I said, if y'all have any more questions, feel free to comment in the comment section, and I'll make sure to get to your questions too. Well, Cameron, what I saw in Jarek really during the season was a couple of different things. Jarek actually was a really solid cornerback throughout the course of the year. I mean, he's long, he's rangy, and you can tell he's a good athlete. You just look at the numbers in that Pro Day, right? 4.4 40, 42-inch vertical. And you also keep in mind, he also intercepted Bryce Young this year, right, in the Alabama game. Now, a lot of people will get to remember that, but he intercepted the first overall pick in the draft. So he was really good last year. He didn't get beat that much. And what was really important over the course of the season that impressed me the most, there was one game that he was needed because LSU was really banged up at safety. Jarek actually stepped up and played safety when that he never really played that position before. You look at Oklahoma State when Jarek Bernard-Converse came from Oklahoma State. He played cornerback there for 4 years, and he started at a high level. He was all Big 12. But he was able to come to LSU, play where they need him to play. He played cornerback for the most part, but in that game, I forgot specifically what game it was, but he did start at safety, and Brian Kelly gave him the game ball. When there were a lot more guys that could have deserved it, a lot of big-time performances, but he ended up with the game ball. So him playing safety really shows his versatility, and I think that's what the Jets really love. So only was at LSU for 1 year. He was one of those guys that Brian Kelly was able to get in here, a Louisiana guy. He made it known that he wanted guys from the transfer portal that were going to fit the needs he needed. We're going to have bring a championship type culture to the program. And Jarek Bernard-Converse really marked the check marks on those boxes. Very productive player coming from Oklahoma State. Played his high school football at Evangel Christian Academy. And suited a need for him, which was really needed at cornerback. There were a lot of question marks heading into the season. Jarek Bernard-Converse, really great season. 44 tackles, 5 PBUs, 2 interceptions, and like I said, including one against Bryce Young. So if you're able to fool a guy like Bryce Young, who's number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, that's very impressive. If you can fool a guy like that hasn't thrown many interceptions throughout his college career, and it's one of the smartest guys out there, and Bryce Young. So if you can fool him, you can fool anybody, and that's what NFL draft scouts really love. And I think him not being invited to the NFL Combine really lit a fire under Jar Bernard Converse. So I like that. I like when you get motivated. When something doesn't go your way, that's life, right? If something doesn't go your way, you have two ways to approach it, right? You can take it head full on, or just avoid it. And he took it with a full head approach, and that, just seeing what he was able to do in the LSU Pro Day Combine, all those numbers, all those events he tested would have been top 3 or 4 if he was at the NFL Combine. So with that approach, with his versatility, with his athleticism, with his skill set, that's why I love that Jar Bernard Converse. I mean, he is certainly a huge steal for the New York Jets. That was a great pick to find a guy like that in the 6th round, because I thought that Jar Bernard Converse really should have been drafted 2 or 3 rounds higher than that. I truly do. So I think the Jets got themselves a defensive gem. So I hope that answered your question right there, Cameron. Appreciate the question. If there's any more questions out there, feel free to ask, and I'll make sure to get to them as we go through the broadcast. So appreciate that as we go back and talking about the NFL draft. Was a lot really going on. Was really cool to really cover the NFL draft over a 3-day period. The first with Gridiron football. So not really a usual draft for LSU, because you usually see guys go in the first round and get their name called. I think if you look back, I think LSU is like LSU and Alabama are like the top 2 teams that have the most players in the NFL, and you can see why with their success in the early rounds. But that's what makes LSU even scarier. If you look at what they did last year, right? No first-round picks, 1 go in day 2, 5 go in day 3, and they won the SEC West in year 1 under Brian Kelly. So that tells me the potential's out there, that this could have been the least talented LSU team that Brian Kelly ever has, and that's going to be very scary, because that team ended up winning the SEC West championship. Now let's talk about recruiting. So we made the transition from the NFL draft. Now we're going to make it to recruiting, current LSU football. So I'm going to talk about 2 Louisiana guys. Brian Kelly came in here, and really all the LSU coaches that coach at LSU, they made the claim, we got to put a fence around Louisiana. We got to protect the boot. I mean, Ed Orgeron said that when he came here, and Les Miles certainly was trying to do that. But when you got coaches like Nick Saban and a lot of these SEC coaches that come in and try to poach LSU from their local talent, it makes it hard. Now Brian Kelly's trying to do that, whether it's from the transfer portal or the signing class. He did a lot last year's class. They signed a lot of Louisiana guys, and that approach is continuing on this past week. LSU has a top 3-4 recruiting class right now in 2024, and if you look, I would be very excited if I'm an LSU fan. There are 2 guys that recently committed to LSU this past week from the state of Louisiana, and I'm going to get them to you. The first one is Trudez Green. Trudez Green is a 6'7". A lot of people are saying 6'8". He's about 6'7". I mean, 240-pound tight end. That play you're seeing right there, I called that play for Episcopal High School on VSN. I called his first ever football game playing for East Feliciana. And what a stud. Like, who was that? They threw it to this guy 4 times, and 3 of them went for touchdowns. Like, all right, I got to keep an eye on this. But talking to their coach at East Feliciana, that was his first ever varsity football game for East Feliciana. They've been trying to get him out for the football program at East Feliciana. Was a great basketball player, still a great basketball player. In fact, if you look at the rankings out there, you look at 1-3 or 2-4-7, you look at all these rankings, he's like the number 1 football player and the number 1 basketball player in Louisiana. So getting a commit like that is not only huge for LSU football because how they want to utilize the tight ends, but huge for Matt McMahon and the LSU basketball program. When you can secure the number 1 basketball player in the state of Louisiana, which is a very talented basketball state, and get him on a football scholarship. Now, that is saying a lot of what kind of impact he can make for 2 programs at LSU. And he is 6'7", 240 pounds. What I like about him is obviously he can go and catch the jump ball. That's what he does so phenomenally well. We got a big frame, 240 pounds. You can just attack the football like a rebound, and he does so. And that's why I just love him. I mean, he just attacks the football. He doesn't let the football get to him, and he still has a lot of upside at LSU. I'm so excited when he arrives on campus and what he can do. Because we talk about him being a basketball player, but he is a phenomenal football player. 6'7", 240 pounds, pushing 6'8". You just don't find guys. You just don't find guys like that. Guys that are towering, that have a basketball frame, and that are that big and just athletic. I mean, he not only just attacks deep balls and jump balls, but he can run after the catch. He impresses me after the catch too. So he's a really good athlete. Can make you miss. So as a receiver, a lot of potential still. He needs to refine the blocking. Try and get physical in the running game. But man, this is the way LSU wants to use their tight ends. He is going to be scary when he gets to LSU. You see how they use Mason Taylor. Imagine trying to utilize a guy that's 6'7", 6'8". So picked LSU last week. Actually made his commitment at East Louisiana. Picked LSU over Miami, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas A&M. So that really needs that. That's pretty much all you need to know about Trudez Green. What a pickup for LSU. And I mean, you add him at tight end. You have Pimpton coming in. Mason Taylor already on campus. I mean, the tight end position. You know how Brian Kelly and really Mike Denbrock, they want to use the tight ends. Well, they're gonna have fun. They're licking their chops when they have to use Trudez Green in their lineup. So that's going to be very fun to watch. LSU was able to get one pickup on the offensive side of the football, and they're able to get one on the defensive side of the football too. And I'm going to show you his highlights, and that's Deshaun McBride. So Deshaun McBride comes from Denham Springs High School, is a safety. I've actually got a chance and the pleasure to talk to Deshaun a couple of different times, a couple of different occasions, and really good kid. Has really impressed me, which is the way he really approaches the game. And he has everything that you love in a safety, right? He's big, he's physical, he's tall, he's rangy. He has pretty much everything that you really need to know. A 4-star from Denham Springs, was a defensive district MVP for Denham Springs. Remember what a year they had last year. Was really one of the program's best all-time seasons they had. 6'2", 200 pounds, 4.49 40 speed, has a 34-inch vertical, and really is one of the top players at his position, a top 5 player rated in the state. The district defensive MVP, I mean, really his recruiting has skyrocketed, and you saw what he was able to do last year. He can tackle. He's not afraid to hit. He can line up in the box. He can line up and be really a ball hawk. I mean, look at this interception right here. Traces the ball really well. Had 9 interceptions last year. So I don't know why they kept on trying to throw it in his vicinity. I would even try avoiding him totally in the passing game. But he was able to nab 9 interceptions last year. And this is really a position of need for LSU. So to get a guy like that, a 4-star recruit at LSU is really big. So big pickup, Deshaun McBride. And he's just really excited. I got an opportunity to talk to him. And you can actually look at this in an article at GridironFootballUSA.com and see that conversation I had with Deshaun. But the way he's excited about how Matt House, how really the defense coaches are going to try to utilize him in all kinds of different ways. And just to be an all-around safety. And as a position of need, moving forward, that LSU needs, and they got themselves a gem too, a 4-star talent right in, not that far from us, pretty much across the street from us right here at Denham Springs High School. This Yellow Jacket has a chance to be very special. He says he wants to improve more on just lining up and and just like approaching guys on man-to-man. That's what he wants to improve more, getting a chance to talk to him and not giving so much space up to opposing receivers in coverage. But a lot of LSU's defensive backs coach, a lot of the defensive coaches at LSU have compared him to a guy like Kyle Hamilton. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, athletic, has great ball skills, can line up pretty much all over the field, a lot of versatility. He is a guy that could be a guy like Kyle Hamilton. And it makes sense because Brian Kelly, he coached Kyle Hamilton at Notre Dame. So you're really trying to compare him to a guy like that. That's really scary. And Kyle Hamilton was a first-round pick with the Ravens. So really, really excited about those two commits. And it just shows you the future is very bright indeed at LSU. But for more information on those two guys, watch the rest of these highlights, go to GridironFootballUSA.com. So these are two recent articles on both Deshaun McBride and Trudez Green this past week. And got a chance to talk a little bit to both of them, get their insight on their commitment to LSU. Two big pickups, one on offense, one on defense for LSU. So two big pickups for the Tigers, and we'll see if they can keep it going as we approach the summer. So go GridironFootballUSA.com if you want to read more about those guys. All right, guys, now it's pretty much about it. I mean, I'll open up to any questions if y'all have any, but that's pretty much all I got here on the Chase with Jace. Appreciate everybody that's watched it in the live stream or is going back and watch it later in their own time. That's really good about this. You actually can go back and watch shows like this later on. But we have a lot going on at GridironFootballUSA.com. If you haven't got a chance to see it, my boss, Andy Bryson, he went to North Shore High School. He actually recently went to Salmon High School, too. And we're doing that spring tour in Louisiana. I'm actually going to do so starting today as well. So I'm going to go around the state of Louisiana. We're pretty much starting off locally here in Baton Rouge and talking to some of the top players, coaches, see how their spring is going so far as spring football has started. You know, when spring football starts in high school football, that's when you know that football, is coming back in high school in Louisiana. I'm really super excited to cover that. So that's all going to be on the website, GridironFootballUSA.com. We have our spring tour. It began a couple of days ago when Andy Bryson went to North Shore High School, and it's going to continue for the next couple of weeks. We'll cover a couple of spring games. So we have a lot of content for you here at GridironFootballUSA.com. And I appreciate everybody that's watching the stream again. I want to give a last shout out to our sponsors, the Johnson Law Group, handling catastrophic injuries, 18-wheeler accidents, civil litigation. If you have any issues in those three areas, go to Mr. Willie Johnson Jr. and the Johnson Law Group. Give them a call at 225-717-7070. They have law offices in Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and Zachary. And then also, if you live in the state of Mississippi, want to get involved in Mississippi State Guard, make sure to go to their website, www.msstateguard.org. And then finally, if you want to get some gear, want to get some drip, right, go visit Terrence. Give him make sure to visit his website at ultimateapparel.com. Tell Terrence that Gridiron Football sent you. So ultimateapparel.com if you want some gear for your jerseys. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this another great edition of the Chase with Jace. I just realized that LSU, they got exams going on in the next couple of weeks. So make sure to go to actually it's the next couple of weeks. So coming up, we might have some player interviews coming up for LSU, so make sure to catch up with the Chase with Jace every Wednesday. We'll get you caught up, get your daily dose of LSU football. But until then, make sure to go to GridironFootballUSA.com for all your content here at Gridiron Football, especially for the LSU Fighting Tigers. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this live stream, and until next time, make sure to go to Friday, visit us on Friday Live as we have another edition of the Football Hell. So hopefully you got caught up to the chase with Jace.